What's up guys? It's Code Lagomorph again. Welcome to my devlog plus demo part 7. Now for today's video, I would like to show you how I implement a shader material for fading in and fading out circle transition in Godot. And also, I will be showing you how my Camera2D in the game switch its subject focus. So first, I'm gonna show you the final output of what I have said. You can see also, I added a simple indicator above the player character's head when he is going to enter a building. As you can see, it goes inside the building. It means the transition system works well, and if ever we try to go outside also, it will works fine. Tada! Amazing, right? And now if you notice, when the player character comes nearer to a certain building, that's the moment when the camera diverts its focus to the building and no longer in the player character. But when the player character is far from the perimeter of the building, then the Camera2D focus will be stick around on the player character. Now as we go on, what was just happened to the transition system is this. In Y sort, I added new canvas layer. I renamed it transition layer. While the first canvas layer I had is for the daytime and day-night cycle system user interface. But anyway, go back here in transition layer. Inside this canvas layer, I added node 2D. I renamed it transition scene and save branch as scene. Just click the scene. Inside this transition scene, I added a color rec. I renamed it transition. And within the color rec, I added an animation player, and from transition scene, I added two timers for in and out. Now what's going on in this color rec transition is here where I added a shader material for fading in and fading out circle transition. As I manipulate the circle size, you can see the process of the circle fading in and out effect. So here's the shader code, and I simply get this code from godotshaders.com, where you can find useful and totally free shaders codes. If ever you are in a rush and don't have to spend more time in learning to code shaders just like me, okay? Anyway, just click this button, all shaders, if you want to explore all shaders available here. Now please take notice the license has been attached to the publish shader here you are going to use. And let's go for the totally free shaders in the license of CC0, which usually known as Creative Commons. let's just find the shader that I use in my project. Here it is, entitled Simple Circle Transition. Published by Overcometh. So you can just simply copy this shader code here to your project. How to do that? Simply go to your project. Find the material tab, then just click it in the shader tab. Then you can easily drag the shader code here. That's it. And by the way, if ever you don't know what is a CC0 license, just click this one to see the description of what this license is all about. Right here, it says you can copy, modify, distribute, and perform the work even for commercial purposes, all without asking permission. Means totally free, no string attached. And you can donate to the publisher if ever you have enough money to give back to them or for appreciation because of their generosity. Alright, so moving on, going back here, let's go to the transition scene script. I just do some declaration of variables here for the transition system. And notice I have an export variable here to get a node path. Wait, I didn't assign a node path here. It should be the player node path. Ah, yes, I remember. I assigned it here in the main. Just create a process function here, and I created two functions for the transition when entering and also when exiting that handles the animation player for the transition. And when a certain animation is finished, it will execute the following conditions below. And I connected the in and out timers, timeout signals here. And then I created also functions to be fetched outside the transition scene node, which are the get in transition and the get out transition functions. Now, here in the player node, in the script, this is where transition scene node is fetched. As you can see here, I created also an export variable to get the node of that transition scene in the player node. above. I declared variables for the matters of transitioning. Having a variable transition vec, transition LP, teleport val, teleport timer, and for transition timer, a lot of timer. I will just remove this unused variable here. Now here in the player's process function, I added conditions for transporting the player from new position. And so here is where the player character changed its landing point value and global position value having new certain values. Now, when this condition is met, the main node, which is a control node, will enable all inputs, which means the user can prompt an input and the game system will cater it. Now let's go down more. And here are the conditions or codes for managing the teleportation of the player character from entering and exiting a building door. And with this specific code will trigger to disable all inputs by the user in the game while the transition scene is running. How these things works, wait, I'll just hide this a sec and this one also. Now when the player character goes here, it will trigger this code. And then the player character will be transferred instantly here. And that's the transition system is all about, alright? By the way, in the player node, I created an animated sprite. I called it cursor door. It will be located above the player character's head that indicates if he is going to enter or to exit buildings. Now let's go to the pathfinding script to fetch the cursor door node, because here is where we handle the global position and the visibility of the cursor door. here in the update navigation map, we do the auto manipulation of the cursor door. I simply assign the cursor door y-axis global position to the player character's y-axis global position -40. So it will simply appear perfectly above the player character's head. Where I hide now the cursor door visibility when the player character just enter or exit doors. And it will just appear only when the user is pointing the player character to enter or exit doors while not yet reaching the enter or exit door location. Now done with the transition matter, let's proceed to Camera2D switching subject focus. As you can see here, this round collision shape is the camera snapper perimeter for a building. The moment when the player character enters that perimeter, the Camera2D subject focus from player will be transferred to the building. Now as we go to the script, I did a little modification here from before. I will just comment this one, this is unnecessary. And then let's try to run. Let's just test if ever I mess things up. Okay, it's just fine. Here in ready function, I get nodes in group and handled it in for loop. So by this, I assigned every building a name of group with focus houses, so I will not have to create codes for detection for each building one by one. Now here in physics process function is I manipulate the target node. Here is where the Camera2D switching of subject focus is happening. And by default, the target node is the player node. think this one must be in here to be more appropriate. Now, you can see I fetch here the player's node get teleport val function to evaluate if equal or not to 0. Right here, we get the return value of the teleport val variable. And it is handled here in the process function of the player node. Now go back to the Camera2D script. In this condition here, if it is equal to 0, the camera smoothing is activated. Due to the player character is the subject focus of the Camera2D and not a building, else we'll only have a steady Camera2D since the subject focus of the Camera2D is the building. It has no required camera motion, unlike when the subject focus is the player character. Now let's unhide some things up and do a final test run. There you go. The reason why I have to create a node 2D inside the transition layer canvas layer node because I want the center of the transition color rect inside the transition scene node 2D to always follow the player's character. Let me tweak this for a while so you can see what I am trying to mean. Here you go. See, it always follows the player character, so when he enters or exiting a building, the transition will always start right at the center where the player character stands without the disruption caused by the Camera2D switching subject focus mechanism. Now lastly, take note as we go back here in the inspector of the transition layer, In the follow viewport, the enabled on must be checked because I handle Node 2D dealing with motion. If I uncheck this, the center circle of the transition will not follow the player character. So, that's all for this video. By the way, for the new viewers out there, consider subscribing so you won't miss out new video I'm going to upload. And also, it helps my channel grow, and thanks for my current subscribers. You helped me reach 100 subs. Thank you so much. Mga salamat.